Recently, I posted about the floating diamond model of depression and how it divides symptoms into 4 nodes: thoughts, emotion, behavior, and physiology. The point is to begin the process of teasing apart the problem into bits so we can see what we need to work on, and to help make the problem seem a little bit less overwhelming. That doesn't always work, though. Sometimes people see it as having 4 problems rather than 1, which is worse, not better. But there's another problem with the floating diamond. It's incomplete. You see, secretly we want to split it so that it's a bit like 3-dimensional chess. 3 layers. Here's what you're experiencing. Here are the causes or risk factors that led to it. And here are the strategies to help resolve it. The diamond isn't bad for symptoms. We can shoehorn most bits of the depressive experience into one of those 4 nodes. The problem comes, though, when we start looking at factors contributing to the problem. Some of them fit. If a person has a chronic illness, that makes depression more likely, and we can consider that a physiological risk factor. Same for dietary deficiencies or problems resulting from the side effects of medication. But what about their crappy boss? Where's he? Where's she? So once a person gets the idea of the floating diamond, I like to give them a bigger model that includes factors that are displaced in time and outside the person in the context of their lives. And we can call that the depression map. Let's start with the context. Human beings are social animals. If you ask people to list all the things that stress them out or get them down, you often find that more than half of them involve social relationships. A fight with a parent, a difficult marriage, friends that don't call, recent bereavement, or loneliness because you just moved cities and you don't know anyone. That social context is often a big part of why someone is depressed. So let's put it in. Now, we can think of those as factors in the person's life or setting, but there are other factors that are less obviously social in nature. Poverty, for example, or being in some sort of legal limbo, or immigration-related concerns, or unemployment, or a home that's falling down, or financial strains. We can think of those as situational factors. Now, we could lump all the social factors in there too, but remember that half of the point here is to tease things apart a bit, so I split them up. Now, so far we've been talking about the person in the present, but everybody with depression has a history, and aspects of that history can contribute to the problem. That assault when they were 14, the death of their parent when they were 7, the year they spent in hospital when they were 20. These aren't things we might think of as being pretty current, and we might not know about them if all we ask about is what's going on right now. But they might have a role in the problem anyway, and they might explain why the person was vulnerable to depression in the first place. So let's put it in. History. Sometimes history isn't history. It's still alive, and it's still having an impact today. And while we're back there, let's think about their biological history as well. And here I'm mainly thinking of their genetic makeup. There's some pretty good evidence that the amount of vulnerability to depression is partly influenced by genetic factors. It seems like nobody or very few people actually inherit depression. But we all seem to inherit some level of vulnerability to depression. Some of us pretty high vulnerability, others low vulnerability. If we're higher in vulnerability, this doesn't necessarily mean we'll ever have it, or that we're doomed to have it. But it might be more easily triggered than for the person next door. It's kind of like type 2 diabetes. You might have a questionable diet your whole life and never develop a problem, or you could be more vulnerable and develop it with a diet that another person could tolerate. In depression, your vulnerability is not the whole story, but it can be a part of it. So we'll put it in. And then we have to ask, why? What's the point of being healthy? What's the point of existence? The loss of a sense of meaning and purpose can be a major factor for some people with depression, and it might be something that we really need to look at in therapy. It might be loss of a major role or job, or a retirement, or the end of parenting, or loss of an ability to do something that was really important to you. So here it is, meaning. When we're looking at depression, and in fact when we're looking at subclinical or milder depression, very seldom is it caused by just one thing. One thing may have pushed the person over the line, but other factors got them close to the line before that happened. So it's useful to look at these different areas of a person's life and try to identify as many factors as we can. We're not going to resolve all of them. Luckily, we don't need to. We all have some risk factors for depression, and we always will. But when we're working on depression, we look for factors that seem to have A, a big influence, and B, a knock-on effect that starts depression spiraling upward, and C, things that are workable, meaning we have strategies that can bring about change. And for almost everyone with significant mood problems, it's useful to try to untangle that knotted mass of symptoms and causes. And for this, a model like the depression map can be useful. You can get How to Be Miserable from your local bookseller or from Amazon. The link's below.